Okay, testing the stream audio. Everybody here? Audio? This time I plugged the right mic in. Good, I hear it. Okay, sweet. Yes, so I'll probably need my glasses. Sorry I'm late, guys. It's Monday. But I guess being late is the norm, so if I was on time, I'd be early. Okay, so the agenda today is just hang out as usual. I have some stuff I need to get done. I finally got the new HDPLEX 400 in, and I need to finish a customer's computer, and I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to see what happens. So first I want to do the little unboxing. These are the DC units, of course. Still no HDPLEX 400 AC/DC. But look, it comes with now plastic in the inside instead of cardboard. Plastic's not exactly great for the environment, but it does make for a pretty unboxing experience. Still get the same stuff, looks like. Same length 24 pin. Same length DC jack. The newer revision SATA connection, same length. The CPU 4+4 and the same length GPU cables. Before I begin, a little PSA. There are two things that I get the most emails about when someone's putting together a mini build and then they have problems. And the first has to do with the riser. You, of course, have to plug the riser ribbon in the correct way, but you also have to plug in the key the right way. And people forget the key a lot of the times, even though see the instructions with the riser. The second thing is, believe it or not, people get the CPU 4+4 pin cable backwards. So if you haven't built a mini yet, just take care of the split end. That's the end that goes into the motherboard. This end goes into the HDPLEX. The third thing, well, it's actually number 2, is people also plug in the PCIe cables backwards. I don't know how that happens, but it is possible to do with how it's keyed. This especially happens with the SkyWire cables because there's not a pigtail, so I guess it could be confusing. But just make sure whenever a cable has a split end, that's the end that goes to your hardware. The other solid end goes to your power supply. There are some power supplies, of course, that break that rule, but they're rarer and rarer every year. Stick it on the side. Sealed package. And no, those problems are not as rare as you might think. All right, so here is the new 1.6 version of the HDPLEX 400. Larry has started putting the dates on the back, which is great. And it's good that we have a 1.6 because guess what? We have 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it didn't really help us when we were trying to troubleshoot and figure out the issues. This version shares the same kind of look as the 1.2, the early HDPLEX 400 with these ginormous chokes up top. Then you have this version right here, which has a flush plate with much smaller coils. Then we kind of move to this solid piece design, which I thought was very handsome, and it has the new HDPLEX logo laser etched with the little tiny graphic milled in. Very, very handsome looking power supply, but this is the one that had the most issues of all these revisions. And then we go back to this kind of design, which is kind of weird, but you can see that they're different kind color anodization. I think what happened here was there was a problem with the solid heatsink, and it was causing some electrical I don't know. I'm not an engineer here, so I'm not going to comment. But they quickly went back to this version as a stopgap, and then I think that they figured out the problem overall, which I discussed in another stream. I could pull it up. But here we are with the new one. So we're going to plug that in and see what happens. In the meantime, I have to make my little chat window smaller so I can see you guys, because I wish that there was a way to make this cleaner. So here's a stack of defunct HDPLEX 400s. And they all pretty much had the same issue. They would work fine for the most part, but if you were loading up a 3D game, like an actual game, you could get a reset. It was very odd too, because you could really stress these things in benchmarks. 3D Mark worked great. OCCT worked good, but don't use OCCT unless you know what you're doing. Furmark worked great. All the Valley benchmarks worked great. So I think that's why this problem was more widespread. It's because it would pass stress test no problem. But there was something in a lot of 3D games that would just cause it to bomb pretty much instantaneously. So I'll stick these off to the side. Sean, no, there's no HDPLEX AC/DC. I'm sorry. And I wasn't trying to clickbait people. I just realized after I started streaming that you guys were expecting that. I was hoping for that as well, but no such luck. At least I have some DCs so I can actually start building stuff. This is a kind of a broken system that a customer tried to build. He had some problems. It was with the HDPLEX, and I diagnosed it for him, and I'm gonna get it back together so he can have a computer again. Undervolting does not increase power draw. It does the exact opposite, if it's done right, I should suppose. And this guy's a fan of stickers, so you put stickers on his front bezel. Again, this is me working on this computer system, but it's not mine. But he did give me free reign to take out anything that I wanted to take out. Siegfried asks, how do I apply thermal paste? I used to be kind of religious about it. Everyone has their own method. I think that I'm in the camp where you can't really put too much on, to be honest. You can have too little, but it's hard to have too little. So just get an amount on there that doesn't squeeze out and make a big mess. I do it nice and neatly, and I use a card, but I don't really think it matters too much, because at the end of the day, your heatsink needs to make good contact with your spreader, and the heatsink just needs to, the thermal paste just needs to fill those little cracks, so. Mothership says, I'm glad you're going over the new HDPLEX. My long struggle between picking the S4M and the Dan A4 has been the power supply and cooling, which I'm sure is the case for everyone. Yeah, I think a big one is the power supply for sure. For cooling, if you mean like the Dan case, I think the Dan case runs much hotter than the Mini in general, but the S4 Mini is more complicated to power. These power supplies are expensive, and they can be daunting if you've never worked on them before. It's super easy, but it's new, right? So you kind of have to learn the ropes. Whereas you can just go buy a SFX power supply and you're ready to rock and roll. The card method for applying thermal paste, there's no real method. I just put a teeny tiny amount on my heat spreader. I take a business card and I just neatly paint the top of it so I don't have lots of goop on there for when I take off the cooler later if I need to work on it for some reason. So I put as little as I possibly need, but again, putting a pea-size amount, putting a strip across it, putting an X on it, I've looked at a lot of different scientific tests that people do, and I don't really see a big difference between any of them. I'd love to see a really awesome study done in a peer-reviewed journal, because I think that would be a fascinating read. Creeper with Shades asks, are you going to add foam pads to the S-forms so the PSU doesn't touch the case and electrocute you? That's not how these work. You can't get electrocuted with these power supplies that way. So there'd be no reason to add foam to it. And everything is DC by the time it gets inside your chassis anyway. Mothership says, have I been keeping tabs on the Dan HLSP 48? I've seen it, but I have not super involved in, I don't really understand the design totally. I've been really busy on some of my projects, and I typically don't look at other people's cases when I'm designing a computer case, because I don't want to have that bias in the back of my head. You know what I'm saying? So I try not to look at anything. I don't look at artwork. I don't look at computer cases. I don't look at mechanical stuff. I just kind of lock myself in a room and just try to focus on what I already know. And I know I'm already biased to begin with, but I'm trying to eliminate subconscious bias as much as possible. Regular Maintenance says, I went for an IC graphite pad, no paste ever again. I have never used these before, but I did buy one because a customer recommended that I try it out, and I'm going to try it out soon and see what happens. I like the idea of it, but I also kind of feel like this is what comes on coolers when you buy them, like from a store, you know, and you turn them over and they already have that pad. I'm pretty sure that's what this already is, but we'll see. We'll see. It's good to know about him. Hey, TJ, you should go watch something interesting. All right, let's see what we got here. I was testing out. That's what happened to my Dynamo Mini. Or that's a Dynamo 360. We have these noise blocker fans for the front of the chassis, but the customer had them between the HDPLEX. Just to clarify, these are for if you know what you're doing. I don't know what the use of these fans are. I do have fan cutouts in my chassis, but I put them there because there was room to put them there. I don't have an actual use. My justification to myself was Pico power supplies. If you have a Pico power supply like the Pico 160 XT, actual Pico brand from Minibox, and it's a 12 volt power supply, and you're doing some of the higher wattage mods, which you can probably see on my channel. I think I enlisted them because I didn't want noobs hurting themselves. That can get hot, and then that's an instance where you could put some cooling fans on it, but you'd have to remove the front bezel. Otherwise, obviously, it won't do anything. Well, not obviously, so because somebody done it, so that's why I'm explaining it to you guys right here. I guess I'll return these to him because these are expensive. I don't know what these run, but they're noise blocker fans, and noise blocker fans they're expensive. Okay, what else do we have? Okay, that's right, we had two of these beautiful, my favorite fan ever, the NFA14 or A9X14s, and these were over the graphics card, but that doesn't really do anything, to be honest, so save your money. The reason you'd use two of these is if you were actually removing the fan from the heatsink of your graphics card. That is an option. That can work pretty well, but generally speaking, the Zotac 1080 is really not too bad as far as noise goes, especially once you do Cuban Legends' awesome BIOS flash mod. It's not technically his, but I'm going to give him credit for it because he kind of made it known for the Mini. This is a SATA cable. I don't know why it's here, but that's going in the trash. Here's the DC power. He likes this green, so I guess I could keep the green. Well, I have to redo it anyway, so I'm going to chop those off. And I'll take off these. He's a low noise adapter on it. Two low noise adapters. Yeah, you don't want to use 2 low noise adapters in a chain. That's bad because they're basically resistors. So by the time that you get to the end, your fan's not even going to be spinning. So if you want to extend your fan, make sure you buy the extension cable. And by the way, nobody should make fun of this guy. I'm not doing it because this is a first-time builder. I think it's awesome that he wanted to try something like the Mini for his first shot. And it can be, like I said, pretty daunting if you've never done it before and you're not looking at the right tutorials. So I'm just explaining as we go along. August Donovan, yes, the HDPLEX 400 DC has a new revision, but no, the AC DC is not out yet. I still do not have mine. It's very sad. I have lots of projects on hold because of it. It's a big bummer. This was assembled quite differently. I've already taken it apart to kind of rip out the fans and stuff and the old bad power supply and test it to make sure it was the HDPLEX. I used a piece of yellow gaffer's tape, which is personal preference, but since he gave me full permission to do what I wanted here, I'm going to use black. I need to go get some later from my wife. I think she borrowed my gaffer's tape thinking it was duct tape. Definitely not, and I want my gaffer's tape back. If you're watching, sweetie. Inactive Brunch, this is the Skyreach 4 Mini. And you can get one at nfc-systems.com. But full disclosure, this is my chassis, so I don't want to advertise to you without you knowing it. But that's what I focus on. So I'm going to actually use the stock cables because I want to show people how to tidy them up and do an install with them. But these are my Skywire cables. There's no functional difference between my Skywire cables and the stock ones from the HDPLEX. Everything that comes with the HDPLEX 400 that you need. It's just that mine are the exact perfect length. So when you stick them into your computer case, it's nice and neat, super easy to install. And I can't say if it's worth it for you if you're a first-time builder, but it certainly makes things easier and neater. They are kind of pricey though because they're all handmade. This is a used one, that's why it's bent. So where is this going? And here is another Skywire cable. This is the Skywire GPU. Again, nicer, neater, cleaner, because otherwise we have to use the stock HDPLEX cable, which has the pigtail for the extra plug. You'd have to use this if you were going to be using like the 1080 Ti. August, this is a very, very important discussion. There are some caveats to it, but this is something I've been working on for a long time, and I really would like that. That's the next step forward for my company. I have to figure out a way to bundle these things together. So that is the future, if there is a future. Biggie asks, I just got here, would this power supply work with an R9 Nano and an R5 1600? Well, this is one part of the solution. This is a good time to talk about this. So the HDPLEX 400 is a DC-DC power supply. I like to call it a DC-DC distributor. It's not the correct term, but it's the correct way of thinking about it. So when you buy an ATX power supply, a normal standard ATX power supply, which are fairly cheap as far as cost goes, because there's a billion jillion of them, that takes power from your wall, AC power from your wall, and it converts it to DC power, and it distributes that DC power to the appropriate voltage that the components on your system need. 12 volt, 5 volt, 3.3 volt, etc. So for this computer case, because it's so tiny, we want to break up the power supply into multiple parts. And by doing that, we can get and arrange things in a much neater, tighter space. It saves the volume of the chassis overall. Now for a big graphics card like this and power supply, we need... I just had one. Oh. We need to use an external brick for this. This is the Dell 330. This is the highest recommended power supply. The other one is the HP Omen X. They're both quite expensive because Dell or HP wants you to buy them as replacements for their computer systems. But if you look around, you can find them a little bit cheaper. Another power supply that everyone's talking about and asking about is the HDPLEX 400 AC/DC. It does the exact same thing as that brick, same function as that brick, but it's designed to fit inside of my chassis. This is actually a 160 unit. It's the first version of this unit. It won't work with cards that are over height, but it'll work with standard height graphics cards. The HDPLEX 400 is also not compatible with over height graphics cards. It's much longer than this, but I suspect that physically speaking, we'll be able to put in a 1060 or a 260 coming up, possibly the Vegan Nano as well. It does require some ultra low profile cables, but I'm going to talk about that when I get to this. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But now that we're mostly on the same page, I'm going to continue forward. Robert Cow asks, what's my thoughts on those semi-custom all-acrylic SFX PC cases that are popping up all over the place? Well, I got my start making computer cases using acrylic. You can go to my website, you can see some of my work. Acrylic is a really fun material to work with because it's easy to laser cut and it comes in lots of colors. It's easy to weld together. Acrylic is beautiful. It's actually quite durable, but only if you use it appropriately. And making a computer case is not really a great use for it unless you're really layering it up. So I would say I like the designs, I like the styles, I like the color. You just have to be aware that they're not very durable. And you might not care. You know, you might just assemble your computer and put it in your desk and you're good to go. The Mini comes with a different way of thinking. I was designing a really, really robust computer case because I used to be a LAN party gamer because I would have to travel across the US for work. So I tried to hit up different LAN parties. You throw this in a backpack, it's really durable once you bolt everything together. I have to show a comment. I don't know why it filtered that. So August asks, so if I get a 400 watt AC DC and a 400 watt DC DC, will a normal one fan 1050 Ti fit in there? Go to my website, nfc-systems.com/BOMS. And I have a bunch of different sheets that shows you the different kinds of power supplies and different kinds of hardware that you can put together. That's the best way to talk about it. You do not need to use a 400 watt power supply for the 1050 Ti. You can use one of these. And yes, it will fit perfectly. Viker, you can check out hdplex.com. They make fanless computer cases, really good ones. It's the same brand as this company. So that's what I think of them. They're really good. I just got a super chat and it scrolled up, so I want to make sure to say it. Pedro, always been admired your work, but how passionate you are and how you express yourself. Thank you, Pedro. I really appreciate, dude. Very kind donation, very generous donation, and of course, the self-esteem boost is always nice as well. Okay, so I like to talk, but I don't actually like to get work done. So this is our new one that I'm using. We will start with the checking, making sure everything's good. Good. It's plugged in right. Hold the questions for 1 second while I actually make a little bit more progress forward. So typically, I would install the bezel before I would install the HDPLEX 400, but I'm going to do that last because I want you to kind of see, I guess, a little bit more what's going on, if that even makes sense. So the HDPLEX 400 is the last piece of hardware that goes into your system. It's a lot of people will get it and go, how does this mount? Because there's no mounting holes on the back. I thought it would bolt to the front or something. And I don't really have a good reason why that's not, but I was concerned about compatibility with all these different revisions, and you'll see why it is not necessary in a second. So you just stick the HDPLEX in there so the connections are facing up. And you can start with whatever. I'm going to actually start with the DC cord. I'm just going to loosely put everything in, making sure everything's straight, nothing's twisted around. That's not the right one. That's not the right one. This one's the right one. Untwist it. Again, split ends go into the hardware, not the power supply. I'm actually going to change how we put the knock to a fan in a little bit. I mean the cable to the fan. There we go, that looks much cleaner to me. With that SATA cable there, it kind of makes me feel like he might have had a drive, but I don't think he does because I don't have any marked on my customer in-out shelf. But I guess I'll cross that bridge later. Well, I'll double check the box. No. Besides, he couldn't have because he had 2 fans in there. Okay, that was not possible. Good, good, good. Gonna plug in the graphics card cable. And now the 24 pin. Again, the split end always goes to the hardware. Though I don't think you can actually plug in the 24 backwards. And I'm going to loosely plug in the graphics card 8-pin. Weston donates and says, missed last week, had to work late. Glad I made this one. Thank you very much for your contribution and for your show of support, Weston. I really appreciate that. And Niagara, I laugh out loud, says, never frown with knock to a brown, which I kind of like that slogan. Scooty Rudy says, is it possible to get custom plates with dark wood texture? Well, actually, yes. I make them, and again, I sell them on my website. Here are some examples. A beautiful American black walnut. Here is a Coco Bolo made from a customer to me, which I really appreciate this gift. And there is mahogany. These are unfinished. And I have zebra wood. So there's lots of different custom options available through my website, nfc-systems.com. Also, I have some cool acrylic ones. I got a smoke acrylic one, which looks really sweet. Okay, so where was I? So usually when I build a computer system, I build it on a test bench. You can use your computer motherboard box when you start off because you don't want to build everything and find out it doesn't work. And I don't know if this power supply works because I'm unboxing it for the first time just like you guys would be. So I'm actually going to plug it in. I'll use my little camera monitor for that. Actually, that would be kind of neat. Do a little cleanup. front panel speaker. I'm going to guess, I don't actually know gigabytes pins. I don't have the motherboard. Where is it? Where is it? RGB. I see the speaker port. That looks like USB. Do I have to look on the internet? It could be all the way back here. Probably is. I'm going to use a screwdriver. But I have to look up the motherboard first. Thank you, Jonathan. Why are you watching my stream? You should be getting back to work. Jonathan's having a weird problem with his computer right now. He got it and installed a different SSD, and now he can't install video card drivers. And it's very odd. I don't know why that is. This is the Z370N Wi-Fi. Have to look up the manual like a noob. To download a 100 megabyte user's manual? Really? All right, look at the front page. Oh, that's just weird. Okay, so the reason I couldn't find it was because it's the same color as the USB, which has the same number of pins, of course, white, and there's these black ones all around it. And that would be a problem that I wouldn't want to run into. I'm going to clean out this RAM, though, while I have it out. Scooty Rudy asks, anyone know the difference between the S4M and S4MC? Looking at classic plates. The new one is the S4M. The classic, you can buy a couple classics today if you guys want. They're very special edition though. You probably want the S4M, but there is a 30-minute video on the differences on my YouTube channel. That's actually well produced, unlike this live streaming stuff. But basically, the S4MC is more user-friendly. It's easy to install components in, has better component support. The S4MC is more limited, but because of the sake of art, I suppose. Creeper Shade says, what do you think about the 92mm all-in-one getting canned by Azatec? I hate all-in-ones. I have another video on that. And the 92mm all-in-one was even worse performing. It was kind of interesting that it could be put inside the Dan A4, so that's kind of a bummer. but I think it's probably a good thing overall because people are going to have better performance just going with a standard heatsink than that all-in-one. So it's probably a good thing overall. And Bellis, I don't know if you're asking about these two fan mounts. I can't think of this forum name because it's just a bunch of numbers, but Brian Zhu, he is building a water-cooled mini. It's called Project Mercury, and he's using a radiator in the front. So if you look at Project Mercury on the Small Form Factor Network forum, you can check out how he's using them. But it's going to be more for the beauty of it and the engineering feat of it rather than actual performance. The best performance is going to be, as far as all internal, the NHL9i, or possibly a highly modded cooler, which I'm not going to get into right now. But it's a combination of different cooler parts. But the NHL9i is almost as good, and you just buy one thing. It's much cheaper, so that's what I recommend. All right, so where was I? I was going to plug all this stuff in. I actually don't know if this cable works or not. Oh, this one does work, but that's not the right cable. We'll use a new one. Yeah, it's 146178123. Is that like a phone number or something that in pop culture I don't know about? A really, really long Asian phone number? I need a longer power cable. All right, let's see if I can figure out which one is the power. And the tiniest little post monitor. But I already knew it was going to post. The question is, will it survive? Andrew Vigil got blocked. Poor Andrew Vigil. Let me unblock your message. Joseph Cano asks, "Hey Josh, I'm getting myself a Skyreach 4 Mini for Christmas. Yay!" And I agree with that. Yay. I do have a question though. What power options do you recommend? I have a Ryzen 1600, 60 gigabytes of RAM, 1050 Ti, and 2 Samsung SSDs. Hey look, Brian's actually in the chat. Awesome. We were talking about your awesome Project Mercury. I don't know if you saw that or not. Nori Riviera, thank you so much for the donation. You are awesome. I really appreciate that. And it's not a victory about touring performance. It's not a victory at all. It's just we all lose. All right, Joseph was asking about power recommendations, and that would be absolutely fine with the Dynamo Mini or the HDPLEX 160. And you can even use an internal power supply if you wanted to go brickless with that build. This will work totally fine. So you can have an all-internal mini build. And if you want to know the components, go to my website, nfc-systems.com/BOMS for bill of materials, and it will show you the components you need to purchase for that setup. It's a spreadsheet. So power questions, that's the best way to do it. As far as keyboard and mouse, this is just junk. I never can have too many keyboards and mice. This is from an old Lenovo and Dell. So that don't matter. Let's log in. As a password, maybe. Might have to check my email for that. I'm going to look for my email and see what it is. I don't have a password. I think I tested the system before with a different hard drive. Let's ask. Customers install. Alright. Get the chat back. Where'd you guys go? I minimized you forever. Here we are. The only way to actually test this properly is to run some video games on it, which I can't do on his. I'd have to go get my test hard drive out, but I don't really know if I want to do that right now. So I'm going to break my rule, and I'm going to wire this up, and then we'll see if he emails back. Nori Riviera asks about my crazy 7980 XE 1080 Ti mini build and if I change anything. And no, I don't think so. I think as far as air cooling goes, that's the best way to do it. I, of course, would use G-Unique's amazing power supply for that because he has a setup for it, which is incredible, awesome, and amazing. And I don't really need to show you guys, but he has a really sweet power brick. Here it is. It's glorious metal enclosure, so if something goes wrong, you will be sure to kill yourself for sure. Dual fans on the back, XT90 connector, but look how small this thing is compared to, this is the Dell 330, This is 19 volt power supply, 330 watts. This is a 12 volt power supply, 500 watts. And it's much tinier and amazing. And on the inside of your computer, instead of the HDPLEX, you have this little guy, and it plugs into the 24 pin that has this breakout cable. This one's specifically designed for that build that I have, that crazy build. Plugs right into the motherboard. That's the CPU power. And coming off the XT90 connector are these two cables, which plug directly into your graphics card, which is something interesting I should point out. If you have a 12 volt source, you can go right off a 12 volt source right into your graphics card. It's totally obvious when I say it out loud, right? But it's just the kind of thinking that maybe some of us wouldn't think about. Like, oh, it has to go through a power supply before it goes into my graphics card. No, it just needs to have a good, solid, steady stream of 12 volt power supply. So you can, if you convert it via an AC/DC adapter, you can go straight into your graphics card, which allows you to do stuff like this. I wish NFC could partner with G-Unique. I wish that could be a thing too. As Siegfried said, it's also power conditioning, but this is all done inside of the power supply. So we're good to go in that regard. All right, let's get this thing shut down. Do I have an iPad I can check for his email? There it is. We'll see if he emails me in the meantime, but I'm going to turn this off. And let's wire this up good. Now again, there's no way I would ever recommend wiring this all up nice and neatly before testing it out, but I'm kind of blocked on the password thing right now, and I don't want to have to bust out my testing hard drive because it's hooked into the wall. I have to move this all over, and then it wouldn't be on camera. So those are my excuses. So I'm going to try to talk while wiring, zip tying up. But my brain is small, so forgive me in advance for not being able to do two things at the same time. In some ways, it is better to have the power outside the case in terms of heat management versus other small form factor case designs. Actually, there's more than just heat. Heat's obviously a big issue, but the main thing is for corporate installations, or big industrial applications. One of my biggest customers was thrilled with the idea of powering really small rack mountable, basically 1/2 U chassis with the power bricks. Because the power supply, as everybody knows, that's the first thing to fail in a computer. You know, if you have good filtered air, then it's not the fan. The fan would be the second. But anyway, the point is the power supply is super easily replaceable. So any tech can go in there, just unplug the back of the power supply, throw it away, and plug the new one in. Otherwise, you have to have, exchangeable power supplies, hot swappable power supplies, which obviously you need to have if you need redundancy. But just for a standard computer, these are awesome. For hospital environments, these are awesome. For corporate environments, like I said, these are awesome. And a lot of people love power bricks for that reason. But as far as personal use, I like the power bricks. If you can have an internal power supply, awesome. That's great. If it works and everything's good and golden and tiny and small, sure, why not? But you have to make some sacrifices. I do like the power bricks because I can have 2 of them. So I can have one at my office, like when I was traveling. I can have one at home plugged into my TV, so I just can move my computer over, because this is really tiny. And the whole idea of it for me is like it's a console. It's a gaming console. So you pick it up and you move it into your living room. You pick it up, you move it back into the office again. And you don't have to move and get behind the TV and plug it in. So I like that. And I get to keep the chassis as small as possible. So there's just some things. T. Kuro asked, how close can the advertised 330 watt can the Dell He wants to know if the Dell 330 can actually output 330 watts long term. And that is a complicated question, believe it or not. There are many different models of this power supply. What everybody wants is the LA330 PM160, which I think this one is, the LA330 PM160. There's the DA330 PM111 and the DA330 P111. That's the OMX CG3 secondary monitor. Anyway, the whole point is you need this particular one, and it can actually output 330 watts long term. Almost to the point where you could run a 1080 Ti off it. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's the right tool for the job, but it goes to show you that it's a pretty tough power supply. You know, maybe if you rarely ever used your 1080 Ti in its capacity, but you had to pop in and do a quick render or something with it, and you want all that glorious megabytes for color grading, maybe that would be a good choice. But I'm hoping that this brick is going to be short for this world. With the stuff that G-Unique and HDPLEX is coming out with, I'm hoping that we won't have to purchase this anymore. But until that time, which could be this December, could be later than that, this is what we use. Guillermo asks, where is the 400 ACDC? I don't know. Where is the 400 ACDC? Okay, I was going to stick this in. If you watched, I'm going to tell about the secret shop at the end of the stream, because I have to type stuff to you guys, and I can't do that while doing this. So I like to start wiring this entire mess by taking the GPU cable and the DC cable, tightening them out and starting at the HDPLEX, and then adding the zip ties as I go along. Hey, Nori asks about 3D printers. I'm not the guy. There are people on YouTube who are experts, you know, so those are the people that I watch. I can give you no advice on the 3D printers, other than they're not magic. There's a steep learning curve even with the easiest ones, and if you buy a cheap printer, you're going to get ugly cheap parts. So it's about the kind of creative aspect of it. I think the best way to sum it up is most 3D printers that, you know, a person like me or you probably can afford, I can't speak for your situation, it's like playing with Play-Doh. You know, it's fun, it's fun, it allows you to be creative, but you can't make anything useful out of it. You just get a pile of crusty cookie dough without sugar in it. Now the Markforged, that's not mine, that's Compact Design's printer, and I run it for him. But that can actually print usable parts because it prints with fiber, like carbon fiber or nylon or Kevlar. Doug M says, how many cc's, is that watts? I don't know what the cc's is the new 400 AC DC, and could a 400 watt ever be brickless? Yes, absolutely. There's going to be builds that I will be doing once I get that product in that are brickless. It's going to be totally awesome. Yes, Nori, this is eye-wateringly expensive. This costs more than every vehicle that I own in my garage and in my shop, and it's ridiculously expensive. Of course, all my cars are like $1,500 or less, so it's not saying a lot. Josh, should the CPU fan blow towards or away from the heatsink? Absolutely down. It needs to put pressure between the fins, and if you flip the fan over, you're not going to suck air through it. You're just going to end up sucking air around the edges of the fan. You won't pull it through the heatsink fins. You need a fan with high stack air pressure. That's why I think that this fan right here, the A914, this is the king of slim fans for coolers. There's just something magical about this fan. It sounds great. It's very quiet, has really high static air pressure for its design, and it's super thin. There's no other competitor for this. Nothing can touch it, which is the chagrin of everybody watching because everybody hates the colors, which have grown on me, but they certainly do not match anything else. But there's nothing that compares to this fan. I wish there was, because I get hounded by it by customers all the time saying, can you change the color? But which fan is that? This is the legendary Noctua A914. NF A914. It comes with the NHL9i, which is the recommended heatsink for the Mini. The colors match my Jeep. That's right. I wonder if there's something to that, or it's a complete coincidence. Yeah, Siegfried, that's a great combo. The NFA9 with the Cryorig C7 copper. It's a great combo. The Cryorig has a slightly better cooler than the NHL9i, but the Cryorig's fan is just not good. It's not good. So, it's a great combo. It's an expensive combo. Steve Martino says, I need a scratch and dent section on my site. I can't afford any of your cases. I know how you feel. I feel the same way about my cases. I wish they were cheaper, and I'm going to be working on making a cheaper version of my case. But these cases are all done to be as high quality as possible. They're a loss leader for my custom system builds, for my accessories. I wanted to do something where I was going to put all the dollars towards quality, just pure quality, because I want something special. Because there's not really, it's different now. The market's changing, a lot of indie cases, there's a lot of quality ones out there. But how I arrived at pricing, by the way, I didn't say, what price should I put the Mini at? What are other people selling their cases for? No, I looked and saw what it costs, and then I made it the cost that it needed to be. And I think that it's kind of a problem now because there's a lot of clones flooding in from all sorts of different cases out there, and they're pricing just under the high quality cases because they can, but they're not putting all the money towards the quality of the chassis. So yeah, Guillermo, unfortunately, there's not going to be a way to make the 1080 Ti brickless in the S4M at this time. But there are some other cool combinations. All right, now that I have this done, I'm going to go down all the way to the DC jack. It's getting all spiky. But this is the way to make it as neat as possible, I find. And we're going to remove a lot of these in a minute, but got to keep it taut. My camera is probably going to die any second. I need to put another battery in, so when you see the rainbow bars, that's what happened. So many zip ties. All right, now I'm going to do the CPU. Starting at the front. Hey Maxim, that's a good question. I just use, I guess, the normal ones, just the 4-pin power management ones. I didn't know that there was a higher wattage one. The same one that comes with the NHL9i cooler. I don't think there'd be a good reason to get the higher wattage ones because I'd end up tuning them down anyway. For these builds anyway. Yeah, I love ASRock boards because they tend to put Thunderbolt on them on their higher end boards, and they also support bifurcation. Now, if you guys want an interesting mini build, I'm still waiting on you. It's up to you, the customers, to make a bifurcated mini. But can you imagine like a WX5100 or something like that with a capture card, or dual WX5100s or something like that? That would be kind of neat. Speaking of bifurcation, I'm making a custom computer case for a customer, and I don't think I'm going to use bifurcation. I might just end up using a NVMe slot and convert that over, PCI Express slot. But I wanted to see what this looks like. This is the Vive wireless controller for their virtual reality system. There weren't really any good pictures of this anywhere. Here we go. The WX5100 is a professional workstation graphics card by AMD. It's actually faster than the 1050 Ti. So I could see a gamer wanting to use it. I don't know what they cost. I had to build a couple systems for a customer that uses them for museum panels. Just so cool. It's so cool, all the things that my customers do with the Mini. Like, there's a Museum of Natural History up in Montana that for their, big interactive displays, they use the Minis to power those. But he used the WX5100s for those. And they were kind of fun as far as testing out and playing actual 3D games on them. Plus, you get to support like 10-bit color depth and stuff like that, if you're into that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to use bifurcation, like basically using two cards on one riser, installing something like that, or if I'm going to relocate it, but I wish it was a little bit smaller, but I can make this work. I got sidetracked by toys, I'm sorry. See, this is the thing you gotta do. You gotta spend 10 years building the business up, so then you can play with other people's toys, and then you can afford them because you didn't buy them. Gregory Santoro says he's doing the exact same thing. Gonna use the Vive wireless adapter and relocate somewhere in the case using a PCIe chip. Jonathan Doe, I've not had a problem with any of the HDPLEXs stopping booting. Oh, you mean without unplugging it? Yeah, there was an issue with earlier models that's confirmed fixed with the new one, as far as Larry tells me. But basically, if you left the system on, you turned it off, it wouldn't turn back on again until you unplugged the cable and plugged it back in. But he knows what the problem is, and he says it's fixed in the newest version. But we'll see. Phantom Beach asks if it's possible to put a 120mm radiator in if there's not a graphics card for an APU. Yes, that's my next video, or one of my next videos. I just haven't had time to finish it. But you can indeed. Did I make a live stream about that? I think I made a live stream video about that. Mothership says, talk about using a twin axial riser to flip the GPU so it's blowing on the same size as the CPU. there's no reason to use that. I don't know why that was suggested. I think I'm being dumb and just not getting it. You should just use a A-side riser. And that flips it over and you don't have to worry about that. Luckily, there's already a product for that. I had to get them made for the S3 Mini back in the day, but now you can just go buy them. You can go, Elite Heat sells them right on their website. Maxim says, this is a cool question. Have you ever done some special S4 builds for a customer that you personally didn't like? Yeah, all the time. That's just how it goes. Sometimes a customer wants something, and you're like, that will look horrible, and I don't want to do it. But they'll say, no, that's what I want. And at the customer, that's what they want. I do it. But I do try to complain at them. I do that not to be a jerk, but because sometimes a customer wants my input, you know? Sometimes they want to hear why I think it would be bad, because, you know, I do a lot of these. But sometimes the customer doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And that's totally fine too. But all the time, I would say. Absolutely. Any plans for more of those one-of-a-kind custom cases? I have 3 going right now that I have to get done. One of them's for this riser. And I'm actually excited about the layout. I might have come up with a new layout. Which is hard to believe, I know. I didn't think it was going to happen to me again, but... Bellis is asking about the stickers. The sky skins. Jonathan D'Angelo, if he's still watching, Jonathan, you know what to do, man. Gotta talk to Trevor. Gotta get those sky skins going. People want the sky skins. Jeremy Keene asked a question like twice in the last chat, and I missed it. I'm sorry, Jeremy. He says, speaking of good builds, any word from Patrick Norton on his build in my case? I never saw it. I think that he did it like for Patreon subscribers, like a special build, but I never saw him finish it. And I sent him another case too. I sent him a special case. I don't even remember I sent him, but I remember it was like a really, really special case. And I never heard about that one, what he did with it. So I would like to find out. And if you know the goods, Jeremy, let me know, because it'd be cool to see what Patrick did. Pedro asked a great question, not a dumb question, but he says, how do you use the power brick to power up the PC? So these two things together are basically like a normal ATX power supply that you would buy from Newegg or wherever. So these two things right here do the same job. You need both of them together to make it work. So this converts the power from your wall to DC, and this takes that DC power and it basically breaks it up into different voltages for your computer system. So you need to buy this. This is called the HDPLEX 400. There are other products like it, like the Pico power supplies, the compact Dynamo Mini and Dynamo 360, which are really cool too. There's lots, there's so many videos on my YouTube channel about these different kinds of power supplies, and Tech Everything also has some great videos on the subject. Black Bull says, the problem is my motherboard doesn't show any video. Should I take it back? It depends, Black Bull. I think that RAM is the culprit for no posts or dead on arrival motherboards most of the time in my experience. And it's very, very hard to troubleshoot that if you only have, of course, one set of RAM because it's your computer system. Take it out, clean the tips off with some alcohol if you can, reset it. If your motherboard has any RAM compatibility jumpers, try using those. Look it up in your manual. But there's not really a lot you can do if you do have a RAM problem and you seat it correctly and it's clean. The second thing for no video would be your cable's not plugged in correctly, which happens all the time, even by experts. Tumor says, gives me $2 and says, thanks for Super Chat. Time for Super Chat train, which I like that idea. Guillermo also donates $20. So thank you very much for that generosity. I really appreciate that. And so I was talking about the power for no posting. Make sure your power cables are plugged in and you plug them in the right way. So I don't know if you're using the mini, but you can plug the cables in backwards and then nothing will happen. And finally, if you're using a mini and you're using my riser, make sure that the riser key is plugged in the right way. Because a lot of people plug in the riser cable right way, but not the riser key. So check that out as well. Thank you, Nori, again. I appreciate that. WC Kern says, what are the limitations of the HDPLEX systems? What's the wattage difference? There's a lot of pros, to be honest, to these systems. The cons are, right now, 400 watts is pretty much the limit. But as you can see in some of my YouTube videos, that's enough to power an i9 plus a 1050 Ti plus water cooling. So you don't really need a lot more than that. You just need good, stable 400 watts coming into your system. Man, you guys got this super chat train going. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Charback says, how do you stream at 1440? Do you have the 4K Logitech webcam? I'm using a Panasonic G9 and I have a Magewell 4K adapter. I'm not streaming at 4K right now because my internet connection cannot handle it. But technically I could stream at 4K with the hardware. I love you guys. I appreciate the kind gesture for the super chats. I'm going to trim this up right now. And I've not added a thin monitor to the side, but that was a mod that I did with my other mods before I got into building this computer case. For sure, that was really popular in the mid-2000s. That was all the rage. Take a laptop screen and chop it up and stick it inside of a computer case. Miguel, no, this is not a Rolex. I just like to look fancy. This is a $40 Invicta watch given to me by my mother for a Christmas present. And it works just fine. It just has bad movement and it's pretty loud. But I can work on my Jeep and stuff and it doesn't break. Thank you, Toomer. Appreciate that. Are you making fun of my $40 watch, Nori? That my mom got me? Shame on you. Okay, so people are asking, okay, what about the HDPLEX? Is this going to flop around? You can put some double-sided tape if you're shipping it, but I don't recommend that you do anything if it's just going to be carried in your backpack or in your house. It's actually going to stay quite nicely once we put the cables in. So that's what I'm going to do right now. There's the CPU. So now we're not going to see that on the sides of the case for the sky slots. It'll be nice and neat. I can't do the ATX cable yet because I need to put the power button in. I'm going to leave the customer stickers because he stuck them on here, not me. So that's not my call. Thanks again, guys, for the super chat train. That was lots of fun. Or proper air cooling, I would say. The sky slots, again, I'm biased, right? But I put a lot of research into them. They were engineered by a group up in Idaho who are the best at what they do. And also looked at by some friends of a friend who works in Redmond, Washington for a company that designed the black box for airplane systems. And these things are amazing for multiple reasons, but they vent so well and so quietly. So when you have a fan right behind it, You're not hearing that big whooshing sound. It lets in so much air. So you could actually do quite a lot with the mini panels that you can't do with standard perforation. It's one of the big features of this computer case. They're not just the style, but it's actually very highly engineered. And I had help with this. I had to pay for that kind of work, but it was well worth it because I wanted to shrink everything down to console size back at a time when there weren't exactly friendly ITX parts. Everything was really hot. Thank you, Ty, man. I really appreciate that. Nodbjorn, keeping the train going. We got ourselves a little caboose at the end of it. Actually, a big caboose. A heavy caboose loaded with money, cash money. And Bill says, do you think those panels could cool a Threadripper? I don't know. The problem, of course, is making a motherboard that's going to support Threadripper in Mini ITX. And ASRock, I guess, could be up to the challenge, but the die is just massive for Threadripper. As far as cooling is concerned, I think with the right high-end Dynatron heatsink, you could make it work. I think you could make it work. You're not going to overclock, of course, but I think you get useful cores out of it. And depending how good the motherboard is for tuning, it could be very handy for video editing, that kind of thing, giving you the cores when you need it for compiling, but the rest of the time it's going to shut some of them off. So Matthew Vargas asks about a 144 hertz monitor replacement panel and controller board and convert it to a portable monitor. That's, I don't know how I think about it. I love modding, and if that's something that interests you in doing, great. But otherwise, I'd say just go buy a portable monitor that's that frequency, which you can do now on Alibaba. So Rexu the Great donates $1. Thank you very much. All right, so I have that plugged in. So now I'm going to take the 24-pin connector, this wire, and I'm going to move it underneath between the motherboard and between the ATX power. Actually, probably have to unplug that. Reverse that like this. There we go. Now it's nice and neat, and it's going to pin the HDPLEX 400 against the side of the chassis. And I'm going to route the power and the graphics card cable like so. And typically I would cut a lot of these zip tie connectors off because they don't look super great. But after it's installed, it's quite neat and clean. And you're not going to see any of those cables once you put the lid on, which is, of course, the whole goal. But that's ready to go. I'm going to see if he emailed me back so I can get to be testing. We have not gotten a response back, so this is probably where I'll cut it. We're at 6:30. Wow, that was a long time. How much time do I have left on my camera? I don't know. Yeah, an hour and 30-minute stream, though. Yep, so I talked for a long time, said basically nothing, but I think that we had some fun together, and you guys hooked me up tonight with the super chats. I really appreciate that. I'm going to shout out all the super chats before I hang up and talk about the secret shop, because that's important. Yes. So for the super chats, start off with Pedro. Thank you, Pedro. Weston Means, Jonathan D'Angelo, Nori Rivera, Tumor Zero, Guillermo Lamas. I'm sorry, I asked you your first name, how to say it the other day, but not your last name. Nori Rivera, who was excellent in trying to keep the super train, chat train going. So thank you, Nori. Jonathan D'Angelo, Jonathan Doe, Tumor again. Wow, same donators. Ty Burger, Oddbjorn, and Arexu the Great. So thank you for all the super chats. Now, for the secret shop, the password for the secret shop for all you live streamers is... I actually don't remember it. 1 second. All right, here we go. Platinum 2018. And basically, I just have the S4 Mini Classics in there with the new Platinum Ore powder coat. So Patreon people got to have access to that a week in advance, so they had the opportunity to purchase the ones before it all sold out. So thank you to my Patreon subscribers, and they always are going to get access to Secret Shop stuff first. And then you guys are my secondary Secret in the Loop family. I'm going to give you some time to purchase them before I make the Secret Shop open to the public by moving it to the normal shop. So, thank you very much tonight, guys. I appreciate y'all. I had a lot of fun, and I will see you next Monday. And cross your fingers. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. I keep saying this every week. Hopefully, we'll see some AC/DC love from HDPLEX. Have a good night. God bless you all. And our battery lasted the whole time, which is amazing.